So we're just a week away from spring practice, and at that point, of course, it's going to take a while before we really get anything tangible out of spring practice. But at least the head coach Brent Venables and the coordinators will address the media and the players in the first few days. Hopefully, I would think, and we'll get a feel for what the direction is and what the priorities are for Oklahoma football in the spring. Do we have a feel for, and this is, again, sometimes I serve up these questions, Jason, expecting you to know everything. And so excuse me, but we'll know so much more in 6 weeks, of course. But how Brent Venables is going to conduct spring practice versus what we saw out of Lincoln Riley, if it's going to be a stark contrast, because we have certainly been discussing and noting the rather stark contrast between the two in a lot of areas in our discussions over the last few months.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He, listening to Gabe and their podcast a little bit, they had actually asked this question of him, and he really, it was really more of a kind of a coach speak answer. It wasn't really, and it wasn't anywhere near the coach speak that we've heard in the past, but it was very much, he was more concerned about he's more concerned about the mental side of it for these kids before they kind of worry about kind of the physical side of it. For obviously they're doing both of those, kind of in tandem, right? But I think there wasn't a lot of answers that he had in terms of how that might look. I think, I know that coaches are still a little bit leery of as much contact as they want in the spring to kind of shy away from injuries. But I do think that you'll see a little bit more physical, in terms of the spring practice and even the spring game to a certain degree. You'll see that a little bit more. I think you'll see a more focused approach on tackling. I think Oklahoma has struggled a little bit over the last few years, really just in tackling as well as they need to be, particularly in the open field. So I think those are a couple of things that you'll look at, and I think it's going to look so much different, Mark, this year versus the way that you might see it in the next couple of years, just because there's a lot of, there's probably more teaching that's happening this year than it will be maybe in the future. And I say that to say it's a new installation on defense, it's a new install on offense. So I think those will change maybe a little bit as the years progress, when you're not really worried about kind of, you've got your culture there already, you've got the offense and the defense already installed. It's really just a matter of kind of continuing that success that you've had over the last few years, hopefully. And so I think that, but yeah, I think a more physical approach to spring ball and practice is what you'll see as maybe the key difference that you've probably not seen as much of in the past.